Well, I think what I've learned from Dana is that, and other researchers too, is that what they're doing on the internet in social network services is socializing with their real friends at school. Mm-hmm. So it's what they do in physical venues, in school, on the playground, or I'm not sure what terms you use here, but it's just their social life, and it's replicated on the internet. So it's not something inherently scary by itself. It's their real life. And so that means that they're pretty darn safe. You know, as long as they're just hanging out with their friends online, then they're not, by definition, in danger.
Pero ¿qué pasa cuando ya empiezan a crear comunidades, a generar discusiones alrededor de temas que a lo mejor no tienen a esa edad la madurez para desarrollar? Hay un tema que tal vez pudiéramos tocar, y es el hecho de que justamente si en países en donde la tecnología se está enseñando a usar en las escuelas, los alumnos están aprendiendo a usarlas en forma positiva porque están teniendo guía de los profesores. Pero en lugares en donde los niños están aprendiendo a usarla en la calle, en su casa, y con sus hermanos mayores o en un café internet, entonces están aprendiendo la parte oscura de la tecnología, ¿no? Entonces, ¿qué pasa? ¿Cómo podemos mejorar esta parte del criterio de los niños, lo que ustedes definen como media literacy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important for school to do for social media what it has always done for the book. If you just think about this new medium as the new book, the new medium for children to use, then they use it for education. They need to be using it for education as much as they're using it for entertainment. What we're finding in the social media research in the US is that there are two kinds of social networking. There's interest-driven and there's friendship-driven. Friendship-driven is the kind that we're all very familiar with. That's what's happening mostly in Facebook and MySpace and sites like that, High Five. Interest-driven social networking actually is being used as much by youth as friendship, almost. There's some new data out of Harvard right now, and that is about their passions, their hobbies, whether they're aspiring writers or they're aspiring filmmakers. They love to shoot video and produce it. They love to talk with their friends about specific interests in school. This is very healthy social networking, but it needs to be guided by educators. Just as the book is in school, social media need to be in school so that the enriching educational aspect of social media can be leveraged, can be turned into opportunities for personal and academic and professional success.
Finalmente, Internet ha venido evolucionando. Empezó como un escenario en donde todos éramos observadores pasivos del contenido que ahí estaba publicado para nosotros, pero entonces evolucionó a esta nueva web 2.0, en donde ya todos podíamos ser constructores de contenido, podíamos publicar nuestras ideas y podíamos empezar a crear comunidades e interactuar. Tú tienes una propuesta muy interesante y muy innovadora sobre la seguridad en línea, y la has definido la seguridad en línea 3.0, que creo que tiene un alcance importante para las escuelas, y te pediría que compartieras con nosotros en qué consiste esta seguridad en línea 3.0 y qué es lo que las escuelas deberían de implementar.
Oh, it's very nice of you to ask. Thank you, Armando. Online Safety 3.0 isn't mapped to Web 3.0. We don't really know what that is yet. Web 3.0 is probably the very, very mobile web that we're already experiencing right now. But the reason why we called it Online Safety 3.0 is because the first phase of online safety, at least in our country, was really all about children as potential victims. Victims of bad content, victims of bad people, and that is not the experience of Web 2.0. The second phase of online safety acknowledged that cyberbullying and peer harassment is an issue, but again, children were always represented in the messaging, in the media, as potential victims. Our thought in Online Safety 3.0 is that we need to provide context for online safety, we need to make it relevant to young people, because these are media that they find extremely compelling. They love these media. And if we just demonize it and make it negative and say that it might victimize our children, they tune it out. They don't want to hear that. And there's a reason for us to be respectful of their use of media. First of all, we won't be talking to ourselves. They will actually maybe listen. But if we tell them that and help them see, with good lessons, solid lessons throughout the school program, pre-K through 12, as we say in the U.S., you know, the importance for media literacy and digital citizenship, then online safety becomes empowering. It gives them a reason to behave responsibly and accountably online, because it will enable them to be active, healthy citizens in a participatory environment, culture, and democracy. And that's what they need to be going forward. Many of them are acting, the research shows, very responsibly right now. But if we provide an important reason, true citizenship, online as well as offline, with rights and responsibilities, then they can understand that there is really a reason for them to protect themselves, each other, and their community.
Ahora que mencionas el tema de ciberciudadanía, tenemos que empezar por definir que ciberciudadanía es finalmente un conjunto de deberes y derechos que todo usuario de Internet tiene en un momento dado, y hay que hacer énfasis en que hay deberes, pero hay derechos, y viceversa. Entonces, ¿qué pasa con las recomendaciones para que las escuelas puedan realmente orientar a los niños sobre cuáles son sus deberes principalmente? Antes de pensar en los derechos que tienen de mantenerse a salvo, y hoy vamos a tocar el tema de los derechos digitales de los niños un poco más aquí, Roberto nos va a hacer una presentación muy interesante al respecto, pero finalmente estamos hablando de, fíjate, hace muchos años teníamos una ciudadanía, después las legislaciones cambiaron y ahora resulta que podemos tener dos ciudadanías, y hoy nos damos cuenta que todo usuario de Internet ya de facto tiene dos ciudadanías, porque tiene la que tenga en su país y además tiene esa ciberciudadanía inherente a él, también tiene deberes y derechos ahí. Y tenemos que ser muy claros en dónde empatan ellas y cuáles son esos deberes que las escuelas deberían de impulsar.
Well, I think it's a right to protection and a duty to protect in a way, but I think really internet safety goes much deeper, and it's something that we all already understand. It's what we're already teaching in homes and schools. Partly it's media literacy. I just read a statistic from an NGO in New York that said that children spend 45 hours a week with media. They spend 30 hours a week in school, and they spend 17 hours a week with their parents. They're in media a lot. And that really calls for media literacy training. That's something that's been done in schools for a long time. It's teaching children to think critically about what's coming in. Now we need to add the outgoing element of media literacy, because media is social, it's multi-directional. So we have to think critically as much about what we post, produce, share, upload, as much as what we read, consume, and download. And I don't think that's a big leap for teachers even at the pre-K elementary level. Citizenship and media literacy are melting into each other because media is now social and citizenship is in media. So they're really almost the same thing, and I think we make things too complicated, really. I think this is not something that is an add-on to the existing curriculum. It's really teaching them life skills as well as media skills and tech skills, but while they're learning about technology, they need to be thinking about their behavior and what they're seeing and consuming. So when I was in Luxembourg for the Safer Internet Forum just a couple of weeks ago, 27 European countries represented. One of the things that a person from the German Ministry of Education said is that we need to teach our children tech skills, literacy skills, and life skills. A lot of that we're already doing, but we just need to be more focused about it, and I think it does need to be holistic.
A mí a veces me preocupa que con lo conciso que es el lenguaje, el idioma inglés, hay veces que términos como media literacy no tengan una traducción directa al castellano. Estamos hablando o entendiendo por ese término el desarrollo de las capacidades de los niños para aplicar juicios críticos a lo que leen y a lo que escriben, ¿cierto? Hoy que estamos en un momento en que ellos leen y escriben mucho más de lo que hacíamos en generaciones anteriores. Entonces, creo que la clave de esto es enseñarlos a usar, y cuando hablamos de cómo ayudar a nuestros hijos en casa, a veces hablamos de aplicar filtros de contenido y esto para que no estén en contacto con contenidos inapropiados, pero creo que lo que estás definiendo, Ann, es que lo importante es enseñarlos a usar el filtro más importante que existe, que es el filtro que todos llevan aquí en medio entre los dos oídos, ¿no es cierto? Es enseñar a los niños a desarrollar ese juicio, es a lo que te refieres con media literacy, ¿es correcto?
Yeah.
Muy bien.